Let's be real about the cold for a second. I'm not talking about put on a jacket cold. I'm talking about 40 below zero. The kind of cold where your breath turns to ice before it leaves your mouth, where pine trees literally snap in half because the sap inside them freezes solid. At that temperature, touching metal with your bare skin burns you just like grabbing a hot stove. Now look at this cabin. Inside is a guy the police have been trying to talk to for 3 days. Here's the thing, they don't know his name. They don't know where he came from. All they know is that he won't say a word. So the police decide they're done talking too. January 10th, 1932. They packed 20 pounds of dynamite onto the roof. Think about that, 20 pounds. That's not enough to kill a man, that's enough to vaporize him. It is enough to turn that cabin into toothpicks. There is absolutely no way anything inside that box is alive. The cops walk up. They're 15 feet away, 10 feet. They're expecting a body. Instead, the body stands up. He wasn't dead, he was reloading. This is the story of the Mad Trapper, the man who declared war on the entire Canadian government and almost won. To understand how we got to the dynamite, we have to go back 2 weeks. And here's the irony. This whole thing started over something incredibly stupid. December 1931. The local trappers go to the police. They say there's a stranger in the woods. He's not talking to anyone. He's not trading. And worst of all, he's springing their traps. He's messing with their livelihood. So the police send Constable Alfred King to check it out. Routine stuff, just a knock and talk. King gets to the cabin. He knocks. He sees smoke coming from the chimney. He knows someone is in there, but the door doesn't open. King yells, "Open up!" Silence. King eventually leaves, confused. He goes back to get a warrant. He thinks he's dealing with a grumpy hermit. He has no idea he just knocked on the door of a monster. 5 days later, King comes back. He has the warrant. He walks up to the door, ready to kick it in. He doesn't even get the chance. A bullet rips through the solid wood door and hits King right in the chest. No warning, no go away, just immediate violence. His partner drags him away, bleeding out in the snow. They barely survive the trek back to town. Now, you have to understand the police response. They didn't just come back with a couple of guys. They came back with a posse. 9 men, 42 dogs. They surrounded the cabin. They figured this guy would give up in an hour. Instead, what followed was a 15-hour siege in the freezing dark. The police were outside, freezing to death. Their food was frozen solid. The batteries in their flashlights were dying in the cold. Every time they tried to rush the cabin, Johnson drove them back with sniper fire. He was moving from window to window, shooting at anything that moved. He was holding off 9 trained officers all by himself. That is when they realized this wasn't a drifter, this was a soldier. And since bullets weren't working, they decided to bring the dynamite. So, back to the explosion. The police blow the cabin. The guy survives. He shoots at them from a foxhole he dug under the floorboards. The police are freezing. They're out of food, and they're terrified, so they retreat. When they come back a 3rd time, the cabin is empty. The ghost is gone. Now, this should have been a short chase. You have an army of Mounties, expert trackers, and dogs. They're hunting one guy on foot in the middle of the Arctic winter. But this guy, he wasn't running. He was playing games. This became the first media manhunt in history. Reports were being radioed out of the Arctic every single day. People sitting in warm living rooms in New York and London were glued to their radios, waiting to hear if the Mounties had caught the Mad Trapper. He was becoming a celebrity. But out on the ice, it wasn't a game. He pulled tricks that seasoned trackers had never seen. He took his snowshoes off and walked carefully inside the footprints of caribou to mask his trail. He walked backwards for miles to confuse them. And he didn't light fires. Think about the discipline that takes. It is 40 below zero, and he refused to light a fire because the smoke would give away his position. He ate his food cold. He slept in snowbanks like an animal, and he was fast, impossibly fast. The police track him to the Richardson Mountains. They hit a wall, literally, a sheer, frozen cliff face. The trackers look at it and say, "No way. You can't climb that without gear, not in the dark, not in a blizzard." But then they look closer, and they see toe holds hacked into the ice. He didn't just climb it, he climbed it while carrying a backpack and a rifle in the middle of the night. January 30th, they catch up. Constable Millen spots him behind a rock. He calls out, "Surrender." You can guess what happens next. 2 shots. Millen drops dead, heart shot. The other officers open fire, but the trapper laughs. He actually laughs, and then he vanishes into the whiteout again. Now, it's not a manhunt, it's vengeance. The police are desperate. They've lost men. They're freezing. This guy is making them look like amateurs. So, they call in the Air Force. Well, sort of. They call Wap May. Now, Wap May wasn't just a pilot. He was a legend. He was the man who was dogfighting the Red Baron the day the Baron was shot down in World War I. The police were bringing in war heroes just to catch this one drifter. This changes everything. You can hide your tracks on the ground, but you can't hide from the sky. February 17th, Wap May spots tracks leading to the frozen Eagle River. The police corner him. There's nowhere left to run. He's out in the open. No cabin, no cliffs, just a man digging a hole in the ice, waiting for the end. The police open fire, and I want you to understand how tough this guy was. He gets hit once, twice. He keeps shooting. He gets hit again. He switches guns. It takes 9 bullets to finally put him down. The final shot severs his spine. The shooting stops. The wind comes back. The police walk up to the body, guns drawn, terrified he's gonna jump up again. But this time, it's over. They search his pockets. They find $2,000 in cash, a fortune in the Depression. That is the equivalent of $40,000 today. He was rich, so why was he living in a shack eating squirrel meat? They find some gold teeth. They find a compass. But here is what they don't find. They don't find a driver's license. They don't find a letter from home. They run his fingerprints. Nothing. They post his photo in newspapers across Canada and the US. Do you know this man? Thousands of tips come in. Every single one is a dead end. To this day, we have no idea who he was. Some say he was a criminal from Chicago fleeing the mob. Some say he was a mentally ill recluse from Scandinavia. In 2007, they even dug up his body. They thought modern science would finally solve it. They analyzed the isotopes in his teeth, which can tell you where a person grew up based on the water they drank. The science said he likely grew up in the American Midwest, or maybe Scandinavia. But when they compared his DNA to dozens of families who claimed him, nothing matched. He came out of the snow, waged a one-man war against the world, and took his secrets to the grave. The mad trapper wasn't just a man, he was a ghost, and maybe that's all he ever wanted to be.